Hello, welcome to Flutterbug Auto. Today I'm talking about Pac-Man World Rally. This one's a game that I feel is super underrated. I think it's honestly one of the best non-Mario Kart racers I've ever played. Though, that said, it's definitely not on the level of Mario Kart. But like, what is? Pretty much the only games I ever see in the conversation in terms of really good kart games that aren't Mario Kart is like Crash Team Racing and the Sonic and All-Stars racing games. So it's like, despite kart racers being ostensibly considered a genre, it's mostly a genre of trash, let's be honest. Like the vast majority of kart racers you'll find range from mediocre to completely awful, and Pac-Man World Rally generally seems to get placed into the mediocre category. But I don't think it deserves to be down there. I think it deserves to be in the conversation with stuff like Diddy Kong Racing or Lego Racers. Slightly more niche, but still competent kart racers. Cause like, this game has a lot of good going on. It's actually a well put together game with some nice presentation and a few really fun gameplay aspects that I actually really like. It's also full of a lot of interesting little oddities too, which I definitely want to talk about. First though, let's get my negatives out of the way. Even though I think the game is underrated, I do think it still has some flaws, which I want to talk about first. The first and I think biggest flaw is that the game is absolutely piss easy. Like, even on the supposed nightmare difficulty, I experienced next to no pushback from the game. I spent almost the entirety of the game firmly in first place, regardless of the difficulty level. And I'm gonna compare this game to Mario Kart Double Dash a lot, since that was its contemporary, and it takes some very obvious cues from that game as well. I just recently played through Double Dash for the first time, and like, it's Mario Kart. It's not the most difficult game series of all time, but it did push back quite a bit at times, and it did take me a good while to 100% complete everything, whereas I 100% completed Pac-Man World Rally in less than a day. Everything unlocked in just a couple play sessions. And that was really good for making this video. That means I have footage and can talk about everything in the game, but like, oof. This brings me to my next point, which is that one of the game's main gimmicks, the Pac-Mobile, where you turn into a big Pac-Man car and everyone else turns into ghosts you can eat, is just kind of not very useful due to the first issue of the game being stupidly easy. You have to collect Pac Dots to charge up the meter for it, but Pac Dots are hard to get unless you're in first place. But if you're in first place, you can't really make use of it because everyone is behind you. Some of the game's unlockables, specifically the unlockable items, are locked behind eating a certain number of opponents in each cup. So you kind of end up having to use some interesting strategies to make that work. Usually I would just charge it up and then sit in place waiting for everyone to catch up and then grab as many as possible. That's still an inconsistent strategy because the opponents tend to end up spread out and you have limited time to catch them. Some of the tracks ended up with some goofy strategies that I was able to pull off. My favorite being on the Galaga track, which has this crossroads, and I could just sit there and everyone just runs right into me. So yeah, fun concept, but I wish it was more useful. The one useful thing it ends up doing is that if you're targeted by this game's equivalent of the blue shell, you can activate the Pac-Mobile just before it hits to avoid it entirely. That's the way I ended up using it the most, actually. My final complaint is that, despite it being called Pac-Man World Rally, and featuring a bunch of characters and character designs from the Pac-Man World series, the locations are not particularly themed to the games, which is a huge shame. There's a bunch of locations that are like the same types of locations as places in the Pac-Man World games, but lacking the theming. Like, you have this pirate track, but it doesn't have the little pirate skeleton guys from Pac-Man World. Also, there's stuff like Spooky's Castle, which is themed after a specific character, but is not an actual location in the game at all. Spooky's appearance was in Pac-Man World 2, and he does not have a castle in that game. There's also the classic cup tracks, which contain the absolute best track in the game, which we'll get to later, but it also has the Galaga track that I mentioned, which, well, it has a remix of the Galaga Game Start jingle. and has Galaga ships flying around. It also looks nothing like the presentation of any Galaga game ever. Like, this is clearly something else that's been retrofitted into being Galaga themed. It is extremely early 2000s Buzz Lightyear-ass space designs. It strongly reminds me of this mechanical arcade game they had at Chuck E. Cheese when I was a kid called Rockin' Moon Rally, down to the fucking green slime and everything. Also, kind of bizarrely, there's only 3 tracks in the Classic Cup, and none of them are Ridge Racer. It's a racing game. It'd be the perfect place to have something Ridge Racer related. And you could have had Reiko Nagase as a playable character. They got her as a playable character in fucking Pac-Man Fever, the god-awful Pac-Man party game, but not in the Pac-Man racing game. Your racing game character couldn't get into the racing game. So anyway, despite the oddity of the presentation choices, I think the game does look nice considering the time period it came from. Also, speaking of the time period it came from, I want to point out a couple things I think come directly from Double Dash. Like the fact a lot of characters stand on their cart. That's a very distinctly Double Dash looking thing. Also, Double Dash introduced a flying blue shell, and what does this game's blue shell do? It flies. Also, Double Dash went kind of ham on the blue shell frequency, and so does this game. And one other thing that I think comes from Double Dash is Double Dash had a mode that you unlock towards the end of the game where you play all of the tracks in a row, and this game does that as well with the Rally Cup. And I actually like how this game pulls it off a bit better because it's every track in a row but with 1 lap each, which means that the whole thing goes by a lot quicker. My issue with it in Double Dash was just that playing every single track in the game in a row turns into quite a huge time sink. It's like a 45-minute commitment to go through all of the tracks in a row in Double Dash. So I definitely appreciate how it was pulled off here better. I really like the cart designs in this game as well. Each character gets 1 personal cart, which personally I like when you get to select vehicles. But I did like the cart designs quite a bit, even so. I think my favorite is Inky's. I really like the classic race car design it's got going on with all of the sponsor writing on it and everything. It's really fun. And then there's Puka's cart, which is just fucking nuts. Look at this big ass drill thing. And also Puka just kind of goes nuts in general. Look at him fucking go. And of course, we have the prince from Katamari, who just kind of is the cart. They put the fucking exhaust pipes on his head. It's absolutely amazing. I love it so fucking much. Also, on the topic of the roster, this is basically the final appearance of all of these side characters. Miss Pac-Man, Junior Pac-Man, all the Pac-Man World villains. This is the last proper appearance of basically all of them, with the exception of Talkman, who has shown up again because the first Pac-Man World got a remake. The rest of them were also in Pac-Man World, but have failed to return. Some frankly insane copyright bullshit that happened to Namco with At Games. I'm not gonna get into that in this video, but it's just absurd. Oh, and also there's Pac Devil. This is also his last appearance, but also his first. They invented him for this game, and I have no idea why. Absolutely incredible all around. Great work. But yeah, the gameplay in this game is remarkably competent. It feels honestly really good. This is absolutely not a cheap and poorly produced kart racer. This game really nails a lot of fundamentals. Like, I really like the drifting in this game, particularly like how on particularly curvy sections you can really just chain drifts together super satisfyingly and just throw yourself down the track. It's great. You get quite a bit of airtime from the jump that precedes a drift, and you can just whip around those corners. The drift also has kind of an absurd number of stages to it, unlike Mario Kart, where it used to just be 2 stages, and then much later on added a 3rd stage. In this game, you go through like 5 entire stages. Yellow, red, purple, green, white. You can also boost if you hit the jump button as you go over a jump, and those feel very satisfying as well because it charges the boost in midair and it activates it when you hit the ground. I always enjoy the feeling of that kind of thing. This is definitely a game with a lot of whooshing around. But yeah, in general, these mechanics feel really good, which is very, very important for a kart racer, because so many of them mess up on the fundamentals and feel so clunky by comparison. Drifting also builds up a meter that gets you a shield, which you can use to protect yourself from damage from items or attack other racers by ramming them with it, which adds an interesting little wrinkle. Also, for good guy characters, the shield is a little angel, and for villains, it's a devil. And this led me to the interesting observation that Puka and Thygor, both enemies from Ding Dug, have the angel and devil respectively. Many implications to think about. The items in this game are, in large part, Mario Kart copycats, even down to the color coding. The green ones bounce off of walls, the red ones chase the opponents in front of you, the blue ones chase the leader, etc. But it has a few interesting concepts, like the snowmen that get placed like turrets and throw snowballs at people, and the Galaga ship that follows alongside you and automatically shoots at opponents. There's also Syria the Ice Dragon, which is an incredible deep cut referencing the game Dragon Saber, and I've actually played a ton of the prequel game in that series, Dragon Spirit, which is actually a really cool and kind of unique scrolling shooter. Definitely recommend that series. It's also totally underrated in my book. The other part of this game I especially liked though was the track designs themselves. The main reason for that being the game's fruit system, where you collect fruits to gain access to shortcuts. That's actually a really good feature, especially for a single-player focused racing experience. You know, having something to collect and go for, aside from just driving around the track. I really dig it. I also like how, in some of the later tracks, the fruit shortcuts start to stack up. Like, you'll get one fruit which opens a shortcut, which allows you to activate another fruit to start appearing around the track. And then that one might also have another fruit, which gets you another shortcut. It's a ton of fun trying to get them all and get increasingly good shortcuts over the course of a race. Though it's also kind of funny because the CPU players cannot activate the fruits to start appearing. So if you don't do it, then all the other racers will be locked out of the shortcuts as well. I think Spooky's Castle was the most fun in terms of layered shortcuts, but in terms of track designs in general, I also really like the Funhouse track. It's just so strange and interesting for a racing game with its wild branching paths and portals. It's got these crazy narrow spiral sections. There's a section where parts of the track can just disappear and you'll fall through. Utterly insane design choice. I love it. And of course, the fucking Katamari Damacy track. Utter perfection. I'm a big Katamari fan, though I still have to finish the sequel remake sometime. So I am very happy this is in the game. Honestly, it feels like more effort went into this one than anything else in the game. It's got the low poly Katamari art style, it has music directly from the game, the King of All Cosmos is there, like, it's just the Katamari track. No weird shoehorning or anything. It's just actually Katamari. Honestly, this track alone is worth playing the game for, I think. Also, I like the presentation on the Pac-Man maze track. It actually makes me wish that Waluigi Pinball had a giant Waluigi you could see standing above and playing the pinball machine. But yeah, like, all throughout the game, there's these weird and wonderful set pieces. Like this big fish who whacks this tunnel as you go through it. Fucking Packenstein's monster and Pacula. Fucking pack mosquitoes. And I love these like tiny fat mooses that have like Pac-Man mouths. They just went hog wild with this stuff. But anyways, so yeah, in conclusion, I totally recommend this one. I think it absolutely deserves to be in the greater conversation when it comes to kart racers, and not delegated to the genre's trash heap. It's got a really solid foundation. It feels really great to zoom around in it. It's got a really fun shortcut system and some clever track designs, a great variety of characters. Though, of course, you'll have to be fine with being in first place literally all of the time if you're at all familiar with racing games. I don't think it's the greatest game ever, But I think it's a lot of fun to check out. Not every game needs to be a blockbuster hit to be worth playing, I think. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you'll be looking forward to the racing game content I've got coming up in the near future. See you soon!